Want to say peace and blessings. I want to say peace and blessings to everyone that's tuning in tonight. Before I get started, just click one if my sound is clear. Just type in one rather if my audio is clear. All right, we're going to give it another minute or so before I get started. So again, just click and or type in the number one if you can hear me clearly. Hopefully, we don't have the same issues that we had the other night when I tried to do this presentation. If not, if I have the issue again, then I'll just default to pre-recording the presentation. So I want to say peace and blessings to Sister Carol and um, Brother Antonio, Quentin, Brother Quentin Boswell. I want to say peace and blessings to all you guys. So we're going to get started here in a second here and have a lot of information that I'm going to share. And then what we'll do tomorrow night to close out the weekend, we'll deal some more with Judaism. I'll expose some more of this system of Judaism, but I'll just do a presentation, a live presentation in that regards. So we'll get started here in a second. So again, if everything sounds clear, just type one so that way I can see it, and we'll get started. So we'll give it another minute at the most before we get started. So a lot of information that we're going to cover. So give me 1 second. Let me get me a couple of things here. Let me get something to drink so that way I won't lose my voice. But bear with me 1 minute. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Want to say peace and blessings to all of you guys that are taking time out of your schedule to view this presentation. And I encourage you to share with others once I complete it. Share it, go back over it, take your notes because I'm going to share some basic information. Going to show you just the depth of the deception. And if you have children, if you have teenagers that are looking to go to school, this would be a helpful tool that you can use to deter them from um, the glow, Greek lettered organizations. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So the glow, Greek lettered organization, that's what we're going to deal with tonight. All right. So some of you guys remember this term from the last dragon. When you get that glow, you know the power of elevation. And that song always stood out to me, just the words of that song, the glow. And when you think about the acronyms that are here, GLO, the glow, this lines right up with the goal of those that join these fraternities and sororities, that power of elevation. So when you get that glow, you know the power of elevation. And the question that I'm going to ask, some of the questions I'm going to address in this presentation is, why do so many join glows? Why do so many, especially coming out of our community, join these Greek organizations? So many of them join these organizations, right? They join these groups because of that delusion of elevation through connection. So many people are looking for connections. See, there's a difference between a hookup and connections. Really, people are looking for hookups, but really don't want to be connected to something. See, the hookup, right? When you think about a tree, a Christmas tree had bulbs on it. Those bulbs are hooked to that fake tree. They don't produce no substance. They do not produce any fruit. Now, a tree, right? A true tree with fruits on it, those vegetables, I mean, those fruits are actually connected to the tree. And so that's the day and time we're living in right now. So many are want to have these hookups, but truly don't want to be connected. All right. But this is what they really seduce people with, especially young people, is they are going to hook them up. They are going to give them connections, connections through employment opportunities, business deals, things along that line, networking. So elevation through employment opportunities. And this is a quote that I quote regularly in our assembly. This is what the Most High put on my heart, and through my studying so much information and studying the history of our people and the key thing that we lack among our community that so many is taking advantage of is knowing who we are, knowing our identity. When you don't see and know your value, you allow others to define it for you. I'll say this again. When you don't see and know your value, you allow others to define it for you. So let's start with our foundational scripture, a key verse right here. This is coming from Joel chapter 3, verse 3 through 6. And I'm going to read this. And just this scripture alone, this text right here should deter any of our people, especially those that are waking up to them, to knowing who they are, that none of us should be participating in any of these secret societies. So Joel chapter 3, verse 3 through 6, it says, "And they have cast lots for my people, and had given a boy for an harlot, and sold a girl for wine. What, excuse me, that they might drink." Let me read that again. "And they have cast lots for my people, and have given a boy for an harlot, and sold a girl for wine, that they might drink." Verse number 4, "Yea, and what have ye to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon, and all the coast of Palestine? Will ye render me a recompense? And if ye recompense me swiftly and speedily, will I return your recompense upon your own head?" Verse 5, "Because ye have taken my silver and my gold, and have carried into your temples my goodly pleasant things, the children of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have ye sold unto the Grecians, that ye might remove them far from their border." Just this scripture right here should deter so many of our brothers and sisters from these organizations. And guys, there's so many fraternities that are out there in sororities. You have Christian fraternities and sororities. They are all around us, but all of them come from a template, and we're going to deal with that template a little later. Yet, we continue to make deals with these Grecians through pledges. Yet, we still try to make deals with the very people that have enslaved us. All right. So we have to, this time that we living in right now, this is the information age, is what they call it. So there's no excuse why we as a people are still dealing with the same things over and over again. This is information that we should know. This is information that we should share. All right. So let's move forward here. I want to start off and do some basic foundational teaching. This is some of the things that I teach in our assembly. And this is a segment, a little piece from a message that I taught for almost 4 years. And that's dealing with heritage. And this is going to tie right into the overall presentation that I am giving tonight. What is heritage? What is heritage? This is a question that many within the church cannot answer. See, we've been programmed to believing that heritage does not matter. It's good for everyone else to know who they are, but when it comes to our people, we get told that it doesn't matter. Our heritage, our identity is through Jesus Christ. Those are some of the things that we hear over and over again. But I'm going to show you that knowing who you are is biblical. Knowing your heritage is biblical. The Hebrew Israelite Messiah is part of our heritage. Torah is part of our heritage. The laws, the law and the prophets and the writings of the good news, all of that is part of our heritage. But everyone else can identify who they are but us. So, what is heritage? What is heritage? All right. What is race? Is race a nationality? We're going to answer that question. Is race a nationality? Many confuse the institution of race with nationality. I'll say it again. Many confuse the institution of race with nationality. Many of us believe that our skin complexion is our nationality, the color black. It's so unfortunate that this institution of race, which was created in the 18th century, created color descriptors, created groups that segmented the people to, and created these social constructs. And now they have our people fighting for a descriptor and think that that is our nationality. Being black or the color black or the color brown, that is not a nationality. That is not our ethnicity. That's none of that has nothing to do with that. The scriptures had nothing to do with race because that wasn't an issue. Why? Because when you understand the Egyptians, the descendants of Cush and all those guys, they were melanated people. They were dark melanated people. The issue was the belief system, the culture, the heritage. Everyone had their own heritage. All right, so let's deal with this. Many confuse the institution of race with nationality. And just real quick, I saw a poll right on one of these protesting groups that I'm part of, right? Boycott or whatever the name it is. And someone made a post, what should we call ourselves, black or brown? Which one do you feel comfortable with? And I literally had to make a post saying neither one of them. That's the problem. Because think about it. The Indians, far as Indians from India, They are just as dark as we are, but do they have to deal with the things that we deal with? See, it's not an issue of skin complexion, it really is culture, because the Indians are dark just like we are, and some are darker than some of us, and they do not have to deal with what we have to deal with. All right, so we're going to go ahead and deal with this some more. Let's go deeper here. Let's go deeper here. Race does not represent nationality. I'll say it again. Race does not represent nationality. Race is not a true identity. Race does not represent heritage. Race represents a newly created social identity. I'll say it again. Race represents a newly created social identity. So let's deal with the institution of race. And I'm going to post a full video on just this alone. All right. But let's deal with the institution of race. This is a couple of bullets from an article by Audrey Smetley, which she is a notable anthropologist. This is what she wrote here. Contemporary scholars agree that race was a recent invention. Let me read that again. Contemporary scholars agree that race was a recent invention. So think about it. If race is an invention, that means someone has a patent to it. Someone owns copyrights to this institution. So every time we say race and we shouting out race, guess what? Someone is getting money off of that. Someone is benefiting from this. So contemporary scholars agree that race was a recent invention. And one of the things that's a pet peeve of mine is when we start dealing with the term racist, racism. My question is, how can a Negro be a racist when the system itself, by the mere definition of it, the people that created this system are racist? During the time, this time of this institution being put together, look at how they were treating our people. During the conception of this institution, we were not even viewed as being human beings. But yet, we are told that we can be racist. But anyway, contemporary scholars agree that race was a recent invention and that it was essentially a folk idea, not a product of scientific research and discovery. It said it was essentially a folk idea. And then it goes on to say, this is not new to anthropologists. All right, let's go to another key point here. All right. It goes on to say, the term race, which had been a classificatory term like type or kind, but with ambiguous meaning, ambiguous, vague, general, universal, Catholic, because the word Catholic means universal. The word universal comes from the word universe. Universe comes from a combination of uni, right, plus verse. Uni is the triple goddess for the Etruscans. So they would refer to themselves as uni, the Capitoline triad, uni. And so verse, of course, is the doctrine of uni. So we see that what? The spirit of universe over our people, because our heritage, our identity has been generalized. So again, it says the term race, which had been a classificatory term like type or kind, but with ambiguous meaning, became more widely used in the 18th century and crystallized into a distinct reference for Africans. And then it also lists Indians and Europeans. But it goes on to say this. This is the key to understanding the institutional race. It says, by focusing on the physical and status differences between the conquered and enslaved and Europeans, the emergent ideology linked to the socio-political status and physical traits together and created a new form of social identity. Let me read that again. I hope you guys grab hold of this. By focusing on the physical and status differences between the conquered and enslaved people and the Europeans. This is important because this tells you what's the foundation of this institution. It is to draw a line between, as you see here, the conquered and enslaved, draw a line who they refer to as being the inferior by those who conquered them, who they deem to be superior, which is the Europeans. So the conquered and enslaved and Europeans. This entire system is to make sure that there is a difference between the two. And every governmental system is built off of this institution right here, this caste system. So that's why no matter where we are, no matter what area of government, our people will continue to be on the short end of the stick. The only way that you can undo this system is you have to rip up the constitution of every country that has written their constitution, written that based off of this system right here. Anything outside of that, you just pruning the tree. The roots is still there. But anyway, it says here, the emerging ideology linked the socio-political status and physical traits together and created a new form of what? Social identity. It created what? A new form of social identity. That's what the institution of race did for our people. The mark of the beast has been here. It's been here for long before, longer than what we can ever imagine. The mark of the beast is not some chip. We've already been experiencing the mark of the beast. And this is part of that beast. Anytime we need to have the very people that have kidnapped us, raped our people, murdered our people, anytime we need them to validate who we are, that is the mark of the beast. Validation. All right. So again, created a new form of social identity. Okay, let's deal with this some more. All right, let's move on. I don't want to sound like I'm preaching here. So who is the architect of this system? Who is the architect of this system? That person is Johann Friedrich Blumenbach. That's who created this system, a German anthropologist, a physiologist, and comparative anatomist, frequently called the father of physical anthropology, who proposed one of the earliest classifications of the races of mankind. So again, it was not done off of or based off of any scientific equations. And this is where we need to wake up. See, this is why I was pressed almost 4 years ago to go out to, actually I was asked to go out to speak at the Black Lives Matter because someone asked me a question at a prayer vigil, right? And they asked me the question, what is my thoughts on the whole shooting of Black people? And I had to tell that person, the problem is we keep using the term Black people. That's the problem. And so he said to me, he said, what do you mean by that? And when I explained it to him, he said, can you say what you just said to me at the Black Lives Matter march? Little did I know that this was a representative from there. But guess what ended up happening? I took the opportunity to what? Wake up our people. Many people got awakened from this. Some of the people connected to our assembly. But I used that as an opportunity to what? Properly teach our people. But unfortunately, that's not where we are today. That's not where we are today. That's another discussion. But anyway, let's deal with the sons of Japheth. And we're going to further deal with what I asked the question of What is heritage? We're going to answer that question real quick. All right. What is heritage? Let's start with the sons of Japheth. All right. This is coming from Genesis chapter 10, verse 1 through 5. This is the chapter that you all should default to whenever someone is questioning heritage. Matter of fact, if someone questions you, when you tell them you proved it with your DNA, that you are a descendant of Israel, that you are a Igbo, you are Bantu Lemba, you are an Ethiopian Hebrew, that you are Ashanti, you are whatever tribes that come up, that you are part of this tribe, you are part of Israel. When they tell you that your identity doesn't matter, or genetics doesn't matter, or that doesn't matter, guess what? Then basically you tell them, then what they are saying, throw away the entire book of Genesis, because the word Genesis come from the primitive root word, or should I say the Proto-Indo-European word gene. Gene means beget. All right. So, nevertheless, let's deal with this real quick. So, here we see in this text, we see that it starts off by saying, now these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, Japheth, and unto them were sons born after the flood. And so it goes on to say the sons of Japheth, Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshach, Tyrus, and the sons of Gomer. And then you see Ashkenaz listed there. So you guys already know, highlight Ashkenaz. Okay. And then it lists some more of his some of the people that falls up under. It goes on to list some more of the people that falls up under Japheth. But let's go down to verse 5. This is the key verse here. By these were the isles of the Gentiles, divided in their lands, everyone after his tongue, after their families, and their nations. So mark those key words down. Everyone in their lands, Aratazah, everyone after his tongue, Lashan, and their families, Mashpachah. Right? So you see those key words: land, tongues, and families. All right. So let's go to the next one. Let's ask this question. Let's answer this question. Who is Ashkenaz? Who is Ashkenaz? Let's deal with Ashkenaz real quick. This is coming from an article from Genome Biology by Aaron Elhake. This is what he says. Aaron Elhake, a geneticist at the Johns Hopkins School of Public Health, thinks so. In a recently published study in Genome Biology Evolution, he is calling for a rewrite of commonly held assumptions about the Jewish community, or should I say, the Jewish ancestry. He's saying that we need to rethink how things have been taught about that. Instead of being primarily the descendants of the 12 tribes of Israel, present day Jewish populations, finds Elhake, primarily the children of a Turkish people who live in now what is called Russia, north of Georgia, east of Ukraine. This civilization, the Khazars, converted from tribal religion to Judaism between the 7th and the 9th century. So I encourage you guys to go back over the videos that I uploaded last weekend, and you will see a video by him, a 1 hour video, and he literally breaks down and debunk all the lies that have been layered over the DNA. He debunks and give proper clarity to proving that the Ashkenazis, as we know them, the Ashkenazi Jewish community, are not the true people, not the aboriginals of the territory, the land of Israel. All right, but he goes on to say this. All right. Oh, well, nevertheless, I didn't put all of his quotes here, but we'll keep it simple here. So, key point about the Ashkenazi Jews. All right, key point. This is coming from the LA Times. It says, so says a new study in the Journal of Nature Communication. An international team of scientists sequenced the complete genomes of 128 healthy Ashkenazi Jews and compared each of those sequences with the others, as well as with the DNA of 26 Flemish people from Belgium. It goes on to say, their analysts allowed them to trace the genetic roots of this population to a founding group in the Middle Ages. Ashkenaz in Hebrew refers to Germany, and Ashkenazi Jews are those who originated in Eastern Europe. And the title of this article, let me pull it up here, is DNA, excuse me, DNA ties Ashkenazi Jews to a group of just 330 people of from the Middle Ages, just 330 people, not families, but individuals. Middle Ages. Middle Ages is not the antiquities. All right. So it says again, DNA ties Ashkenazi Jews to a group of just 330 people from the Middle Ages. And I have the article from Nature and Communication. All right. But I just didn't put it inside this presentation. Okay. So let's see what the Jewish Almanac says real quick. All right. You guys know this right here, but I encourage you guys to get a copy of this book. You can purchase a used copy of it, and it has all this information in it. Strictly speaking, it is incorrect to call an ancient Israelite a Jew, or to call a contemporary Jew an Israelite or a Hebrew. The first Hebrews may not have been Jews at all in contemporary Palestinians. All right. So, in a nutshell, this is telling you that you cannot use or the terms like Jew interchangeably with Israelites or Hebrews. That's why they use the term Israeli. Israeli is referring to those that have been born in that land but are not aboriginal to the land. Okay, so again, we'll deal with that another time. So, what is the period of the Middle Ages? This is another key to understanding our heritage and understanding history and how it's when you say the word history, it's literally his story, right? This is what it says. Oxford Dictionary here says the period of European history. Let me say that again. Whenever you say Middle Ages, you're always making a reference not to your history, but the European history. So every time you say Middle Ages, you are referring to the period of European history. So there's a bias there. That's why you hear the play on words, his story. Okay. The period of European history from the fall of the Roman Empire in the West, in other words, in the 5th century, to the fall of Constantinople, 1453, or more narrowly from the 10th century to 1453, right? So you have the Middle Ages, but it's split into two parts, right? You have the Middle Ages proper per se, and you have what is called the Dark Ages. The Dark Ages is referring to when the Moors conquered and ruled Spain for almost 900 years. The Moors, they ruled the Iberian Peninsula for all of that time. So they call that the Dark Ages. All right. So the earliest part of the period from 500 to the 11th century is sometimes distinguished as the Dark Ages, while the latter part from the 10th century, as we pointed out, to 1453, or the 11th century to 1453, is often thought of as the Middle Ages proper. The whole period is characterized by the emergence of separate kingdoms. We'll just stop right there. All right. So let's deal with the Middle East deception. And again, all of this ties in. All of this ties in together. All right. Let's deal with the Middle East deception. This is coming from the New York Times. The New York Times. Until this century, nobody talked about the Middle Ages. And this article is dated March 13th, 1991. It says, until this century, nobody talked about the Middle East because neither the term nor the states in the region existed. Both were the works of the victors in World War I, the true begetters of the furies that still rage. It goes on to say, the term Middle East was coined in 1901 by Admiral Alfred Thayer Mahan, the celebrated American advocate of naval power. It was popularized in speeches in 1916 by Sir Mark Sykes, a British member of Parliament. Okay, goes on to say the initial designer of the Middle East was Britain's redoubtable war minister, Lord Kitchener, who proposed indirect colonial hegemony relying on indigenous kings and emirs to carry out British wishes. Excuse me. All right. So we see that the Middle East, what is called the Middle East, that is really Northeast Africa. It was not until 1901 when it began to be called the Middle East. All of that is still territory of Africa. So let's deal with the next son in line. His name is Ham. And the reason why I'm saying Ham is because there's a lot of poor teaching out there, right? Where many will say Abraham was part Shem or part Hebrew and part descendant of Ham because of his name, Abraham, right? There's no ha in Abraham's name. It's a ka. That's why I said, there's no ka in Abraham's name. It's a ha, right? So when you say kam, right, it's similar to saying what? Kamat or kemet, right? But when you say Abraham, you do not have a ka inside his name. So you cannot say that Abraham name and play on these words and say that, hey, he's half um, um, Hebrew and he's half Ham, because look at his name, Abraham. No, Ham's name is Kam. It has a ka in it, not a ha. All right. And that's the same junk teaching that you hear when people try to play on words and say Israel is a combination of Isis, Ra, and El. And when you understand Hebrew, you'll understand that Israel is not the proper name. It's a transliterated name of Yah's people, Yashara'al. That's a transliterated term. And you'll understand the actual name for Amin Ra is Yamanu. All right. So that right there, we can just shut all of that stuff down. All right. So let's move forward here. Just want to give you guys some nuggets as we build here. All right. So the sons of Ham, this is what it says. Genesis chapter 10, verse 6 through 8. And we're going to skip down to verse 20. All right. This is what it says. And the sons of Ham, Cush, Mizraim, and Phut, and Canaan. All right. And we're just going to skip down. You see verse 8 where it says, and Cush begat Nimrod. And there we see that word begat. He began to be a mighty one in the earth. But let's skip down to verse 20 because this is the kicker. These are the sons of Ham and their what? Families, Mashpachah, after their tongues, Lashan, and their countries, Aratazah, and in their what? Nations. So we see those three key words again, and nations is a key word as well. So we're going to break this down. So the question is, are you a descendant of Ham? Or are you a descendant of Japheth? Are you a descendant of Shem? We're going to deal with this, all right? But most of this, we're going to deal with this in a whole different presentation when I break that down. But let's deal with the sons of Shem. Let's deal with the sons of Shem. Genesis chapter 10, verse 21 and 31. Let's see what it says here. Let's see what it says here. Unto Shem, also the father of all the children of Eber or Ibar. See, that's another thing I've got to knock down here. We got to be clear. We got to make sure that we do not improperly teach that the Israelites had a patent on the word Hebrew, or should I say Ibar. Anyone that's a descendant of Eber or Ibar is a Hebrew, but doesn't mean that they are an Israelite. Ishmael was a Hebrew. All of Abraham's sons was Hebrew. Lot, Abraham's nephew, was a Hebrew, but they were not Israelites. Esau was a Hebrew, but he is not Israel. That's the difference. See, we have a unique, we have that uniqueness about us because we are what? The promised seed. Okay. So, nevertheless, with that being said, I just wanted to give some clarity here because there's a lot of poor teaching that's out here that's really making it hard for us to really get this truth out. All right. So many layers, so many layers. So, again, everyone that's under Shem is what? Is a descendant of Shem. We can use the term Shemitic or Semitic, however you want to use the term. Everyone that falls under Shem is a descendant of Shem. But then when you get down to Eber, anyone that's a descendant of Eber, they are what? Ibara or Ibarya or Ibar, however you want to pronounce it. I pronounce it Ibarya, which is ancient Hebrew, which is transliterates to Hebrew. Ibar is Eber's name, and Ibarya is basically interchangeable with some of you guys may say Ibri, but nevertheless, right? So again, anyone that's a descendant of Israel, you are a Hebrew Israelite. That's a fact. So don't get caught up in these arguments, especially that you're hearing from the urban apologists saying that, hey, Jesus Christ never said that he's a Hebrew Israelite. Come on now, let's stop with the madness. Let's stop with the madness. That's why you hear me say the Hebrew Israelite Messiah, because he was and is an Hebrew Israelite. All right. But anyway, let's go to deal with this some more. Right. It goes on to say, these are the sons of Shem after their families, after their tongues, and their lands, after their what? Nations. So we see that again. We see the same pillars there. We see what? Families, mashpaka. We see tongues, lashan. We see land, aratazah, after their nations, gayam, right? And that's the other thing that we have to give clarity. Gayam, when we see here, is interchangeable or transliterates to the word nation. All right. But we see here, all of them, all the Noah's sons, and as we see in verse 32, it backs this up. These are the families of the what? Sons of Noah after their generations and their nations. And by these were the nations divided and the earth after the flood. All right. So what does family, tongues, land, what do they represent? I'm going to give you the answer here. Glad you guys asked. Well, guess what? These they represent the pillars of what constitutes a nation being a nation. They represent the pillars of a nation: land, family, and tongues. See, I'm showing you how to properly teach heritage with scripture, but I'm not going to leave it there, right? I'm going to give you a secular reference so that way you can confirm what I just mentioned. So let's go to the Oxford Dictionary definition of nation. Let's see what it says. Let's see what it says. It says large body of people united by common descent, right? Isn't it confirming what I just shared with you guys? What the Bible just said? A large body of people united by common descent, history, culture, or language, inhabiting a particular country or territory. This just what explain what I just pointed out. This just confirms. This is how you confirm the scriptures, right? Just explain what it is and gave you what? A secular reference, right? Remember, two or three witnesses, right? I just gave you a witness here. Now let me give you another witness. What does family, tongues, land, and nation represent? Well, I'm glad you guys asked. You guys are on fire tonight. Let me answer that question. They represent heritage. They represent heritage. So let me break down, or should I say, let the Oxford Dictionary definition of heritage, let them break it down. And they're going to confirm what I just highlighted with you. It says heritage, valued objects. So land, family, tongues, which constitutes a community becoming a nation, they are valuable objects and qualities such as cultural tradition, right? That's our heritage. Right? That's our heritage. Torah, that's our heritage. The laws, statutes, and commandments, the law and the prophets and the gospels, all of that is part of our heritage. That is what is called the true tense of Hebrew Israelism. Israelism, right, is what? The doctrine of the Israelites. And unfortunately, we live in a day and time that they even demonizing those terms right there. Right. So that's what's interesting. Let me see here. I'm gonna look at the question or comments real quick. Another big issue in our community is the scattered Israelites being called Gentiles, Greeks in the New Testament. See, that is a word of confusion. And I'm going to do a teaching on that and called the words of confusion. And I break down Greek and I break down Gentile. All right. Or should I say Jew and Gentile rather? And we're going to deal with that. Matter of fact, I'll put it on my calendar. We'll do that next weekend. I'll make sure I teach that next Saturday night if you guys go with that. All right. But nevertheless, it says valued objects in qualities such as cultural tradition, unspoiled countryside, historical buildings that have been passed down from previous generations. So we just confirmed this. Now, with all of that I share with you, let me give you some keywords. Now we're getting ready to get into the deep waters here. Let's deal with the Hebrew word salvation or yasha. Yes, let's deal with salvation. Let's see what salvation means. It says this: to be open, free, to be safe, avenging, defend, deliverer, deliverer, help, preserve, rescue, be safe, bringing salvation, having salvation, save, savior, get victory. All right. That's what salvation means. Yasha, that's what it means. All right. So we're going to tie all of this together, right? Salvation. So our heritage is part of our salvation. When the Hebrew Israelite comes again, guess what? He's restoring not just our soul, he's going to restore what? All that was taken away from his people, the Israelites. That's part of the heritage. That's the part that gets generalized when it gets to us. All right. Resurrection is more than just what? Our soul. When someone was made whole, when Christ said, when the Hebrew Israelite Messiah said, your faith has made you whole, what that means is it's not just saying healed her body, it's saying it repaired everything around her, repaired relationships. Because when a woman have an issue with her blood, guess what? Not just a woman or a man, or have any type of leprosy, you have to separate from the people. You can't even come into the place of worship. So when you are made whole, that means that guess what? That everything that you lost, every broken relationship that was lost, everything that you lost is now restored. That is what salvation is going to do for Yah's people. Not just restores as our physical bodies, restore our spirits, but to restore everything that he had set aside for his people. And that is our land, our family, our language. Those are the things he's going to restore to us. So let's deal with another key word here: shield, right? This is another key word when we're dealing with secret societies, shield, right? Let's deal with the Magan or Magan. Let's deal with this word here, right? It means a shield, a protector, defense. Now, I'm going over these words for a reason, because when you start dealing with these secret societies, they want to what? Give you a heritage. They also want to give you what? Salvation based upon their system. And they also want to what? Introduce to you a shield. Okay. So here's a popular shield that is used in modern Israel, or should we say the Israelis, which is called the Magen David or the Magan Dawid, right? Or Dawad, right? Shield of David, the so-called Star of David. Notice what it says, the so-called Star of David, because Israel didn't have one. Or a hexagram constructed of two interlocked triangles, now accepted as a symbol of Judaism. Actually, it was not associated with Judaism until the late Middle Ages. Remember, keyword, buzzword, Middle Ages. In other words, that is what? The history of the Europeans. It's not referring to our history. It's referring to the history of the Europeans, but the Middle Ages. And we have to say, when they say Middle Ages, they're referring to the 11th century on, the 10th or the 11th century up until the 14th century. So in that period is when they created this here, not during the Dark Ages, not during the time of the Moors ruling the Iberian Peninsula. Okay, so Shield of David, the so-called Star of David or hexagram, constructed of two interlocked triangles, and this is where you get the steeple of the church is from, right? Now accepted as a symbol of Judaism. Actually, it was not associated with Judaism until the late Middle Ages and was not officially accepted as a Jewish symbol until the 17th century, right? The 17th century. The original source of the Magen David was the Tantric Great Yantra. That's Hinduism, which stood for union of the sexes. The downward pointing triangle being female and the upward pointing one male. The two signifying the eternal union of God and God and goddesses. All right, Kabbalistic Kabbalistic sex worship brought through the yantra into Jewish tradition, but later, well, let me read that again. Capitalistic sex ritual brought through the yantra into Jewish tradition. All right. So when we see this here, right, that symbol literally is a symbol of sex. That is the symbol of what is called the Kali dance of death. The Kali dance of death is actually a sexual ritual. All right. That's when you start getting into sexual prostitution. That's when you start getting into phallic worship. So when you see Yanni, Yanni is the what? The female reproductive organ. The ligam Yanni refers to what? The male reproductive organ, right? Coming together with the female reproductive organ. All right. So look at all these shields that's on the screen. Every governmental system has a shield. And see, unfortunately, when we start looking at this from a group of copycats, right? We have to be careful of what, not bringing the mark, not bringing these behaviors among the people of the Most High, because you see, now we've been institutionalized to thinking that every time we start a group, we got to come up with what, a shield. Think about in the church. Every church has a shield. Every bishop, when a bishop is installed, one of the things that that bishop creates is what, a shield, creates a magen, a magen for himself to represent what, any groups or any churches that may come up under his tutelage. So we have to be careful. We see the same practices happening among our people. We creating all kinds of what, shields, right? And I had to catch myself about how I would use the lion. I had the image of the lion behind my presentations and all kinds of stuff. So we have to be careful not to what, make idols of even things like the lion or the Bible or what's some of the other things. It's other things that people will make idols into, even making idols of what, fringes. We have to be careful because we can be straddling the fence of doing the same thing that these secret societies are doing. All right. So again, just be careful of how you do things because we do not want to fall right back into the errors of our ancestors. Right. So again, look at these shields here. Right. You see the presidential seal. You see different countries. You see the Department of Justice. You see the military. But at the top, you see what? The Fraternal Order of Police. You see what? The Fraternal Order of Police. And notice you see the all-seeing eye, and you see the what? Secret handshake. Those are symbols from Freemasonry. All right. So let's go ahead and deal with this some more. Let's deal with a little bit of the Fraternal Order of Police. I'm not going to go too deep because I want to prolong this presentation, make it any longer than what it is because it's pretty lengthy. So the Fraternal Order of Police, let's deal with them. All right. And you see how their star looks just like the Eastern Star seal. All right. So the Fraternal Order of Police, little information on them. They began in 1915 by two Pittsburgh patrol officers, Martin Toole and Delbert Nagel. 21 other cops met on May 14th, 1915, and held the first meeting of the Fraternal Order of the Police, forming Fort Pitt Lodge Number One. The Fraternal Order of Police not only mimicked the Masonic structure, but also adopted a five-pointed star as their emblem, containing twin Masonic images of the all-seeing eye and a typical Masonic style handshake. Right? And I'm looking in the comments here. That's right. Reese. That's right. Lion, the lamb. Lamb is another thing that's we have to be careful of making idols into. So yeah, I appreciate you that for posting that. Appreciate it. All right. So again, this is just history of the Fraternal Order of Police. All right. Here's some more symbols. You recognize some of these. You got the firehouse. You got the Red Cross. You have other symbols, other shields. So I want to make this clear. Out of with all the shields that you've seen, every shield has a set of laws which can only be carried by those who pledge. I'll say it again. Every shield has a set of laws which can only be only um, carried by those who pledge to this shield. Okay. So I want to reiterate that point. All right. So let's see what the word pledge means. All right. It means, and this is coming from the etymology dictionary online, to promise, to give over as security for repayment. We see the word pledge again. And then it goes on to say, put under oath or put someone under oath. All right. So here's some more symbols that you see here. Now, there's hundreds and hundreds upon hundreds of different symbols that are out there when it comes to these different emblems that represents these fraternities out here. All right. So you see these symbols here. Some of these you recognize, but let me put some bigger symbols right up here. Right. You see the Eastern Star that's on the left, the Eastern Star. And then to the right, you see the square and the compass. Right. And in the middle, you see the letter G. And we're going to deal with all of this. We're going to deal with this in the a little later. All right. So you see to the right, that's what the Fraternal Order of Police mimicked. Right. And actually, if you look at that star closely, right, it looks like the Baphomet. Right. It looks like the Baphomet. Right. I'm just going to move my mouse here. You see the horns, the ears, and the mouth. Right. So, nevertheless, we'll deal with this some more. But again, right, you have the square and the compass, right? And you also have the Eastern Star symbol right here. Okay. So you see the word fatal, and you see in the center of it, right? You see what looks like an altar. All right. We'll deal with this some more, guys. We'll deal with this some more. Okay. So, what is the glow? What is the glow? GLOW stands for Greek lettered organizations. Let me say that again. The GLOW stands for Greek lettered organizations. All right. So the question is, why do so many Israelites call themselves Greeks when that's not their nationality? Right? That's the question right there. Why? All right. Here's another question. What is a cult? What is a cult? Right? This is what a cult means. The definition of a cult is a group of people with extreme dedication to a certain leader or set of beliefs that are often viewed as, excuse me, just clearing my throat, set of beliefs that are often viewed as odd by others, or is an excessive and misplaced admiration for someone or something, or is something that is popular among a certain segment of society. Now, technically, people can view us as a cult. You know, they could view every person that's following the Hebrew Israelite Messiah as a cult, right? They may consider that our dedication is extreme, okay? But the difference is when you start getting into what is called occultic behavior, right? So the word cult comes from the word, you get the word culture. Culture comes from the Hebrew word abad, which means till. Okay, so again, um, technically, we could call everyone cults, based upon this definition of the first part here. But just for the sake of presentation, we want to keep it within the confounds of this presentation because, again, um, just in this country alone, there's tens of thousands of what they would call cults here that they consider to be extreme behaviors. All right. So, nevertheless, let's deal with this some more. All right. So, again, the definition of a cult is a group of people with extreme dedication to a certain leader or set of beliefs that are often viewed as odd by others, or is an excessive and misplaced admiration for someone or something, or is something that is popular among a certain segment of society. All right. So now let's get into the history of fraternities and sororities. Let me break this down some more. All right, we're getting there. So let's deal with the etymology dictionary definition of fraternity. All right, it means a body of men associated by common interest, brotherhood. And it goes on to say college Greek lettered organizations, since is from what? 1777. First in reference to Phi Beta Kappa. All right. So let's deal with the same thing with the word sorority. Right. Going to the same dictionary. It says a society of women, body of women, united for some purpose. All right. Then it goes on to say, tells us that 1887, we see attested by 1887. And then it goes on in parentheses. It says alpha data, or excuse me, alpha delta phi, excuse me, alpha delta pi, claiming founding in 1851. Okay, so let's deal with the first college fraternity, which is Phi Beta Kappa. Let me give you some information on them. Phi Beta Kappa, right? Phi Beta Kappa was founded by 5 students at the College of William and Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia. The first meeting was held in the Apollo Room of the Old Raleigh Tavern on December 5th, 1776. And this is coming from their own website. All right. Just want to make that clear. This is information from their website. And below it, you see the link. It goes on to say John Heath, which you see on the right there, the first president of Phi Beta Kappa, was determined to develop a student society that would be much more serious minded than its predecessors. All right. So here's some more information here. The group consisted of students who frequently gathered at the Raleigh Tavern, which was a common meeting area off the college campus, in which a story began to circulate that a Masonic lodge also met at this tavern. But the Freemasons supposedly gathered at a different building in Williamsburg. Coincidentally, 10 of the original members later did become Freemasons. All right. So, uh, you know, that first fraternity that I just pointed out, right? Phi Beta Kappa, William and Mary, right? All of those founders, right? All those that came up with or pushed that fraternity forward further, right? 10 of them, right, that helped put this together, they all what? Became Masons. All right. What a coincidence, right? So let me break down a few more things, some more key points that you need to know about fraternities and sororities. There are 4 classifications of fraternities and sororities. I'll say it again. There are 4 classifications of fraternities and sororities, right? Number one, social fraternities and sororities. These are found in most college and universities. Number two, professional or exclusive. In other words, journalism, law, medicine, music. Okay. Number three, honor and recognition societies comprise comprise mostly of students enrolled in colleges of arts and science. But you'll also see this on the level of high school, like the National Honor Society for academic achievements, and you see that in high school. You also see it in middle school and those type of things as well. All right, so that's a group here. That is the third group here. Lastly, varsitarians. And what this is, it's exclusive for college and university students in a particular province or region. In other words, certain fraternities or fraternities that's in certain areas of the country or areas of the world. All right. So, most social fraternities, all right, here's another point I want to make. All right. Most social fraternities and sororities impose secret obligations on their members and have secret or distinctive hand grips and passwords that enable the members to be acquainted with one another while verifying their common membership. All right. So I want y'all to make sure that. Let me peep over here. I'm just seeing some words in the comment section. All right. Just want to make sure I'm okay. Got you guys. All right. So, which leads me to another point I want to make. Right. Every fraternity has what is called a baptismal presentation. I'll say it again. Every fraternity has what is called a baptismal presentation. So the question is, what is a baptismal presentation? Let me break it down for you, right? The baptismal presentation is the first stage in all fraternities and sorority initiation rites. A person cannot become a member without passing this stage. The first stage is called again the baptismal because the applicant or recruit is baptized and given a baptismal name or alias, right? And you guys remember school days and how they all had their nicknames that was online. Okay, so after the baptismal, the applicant is called a neophyte, and he or she lives as a slave until he or she finally becomes a member of that fraternity. So let's deal with the etymology definition of neophyte real quick. It simply means new convert, newly initiated, newly converted, newly planted. That's all it means. New convert. All right. So, which leads me to my next question as we go deeper here. I know I'm giving you a lot of information, but I'd rather give you too much information than not enough information. But I want to walk you through so you have a full understanding and how you can explain this, why these secret societies is not good for our people. All right. And truth be told, not good for any people. But what is the first Negro fraternity in the United States? I'll ask that question again. What is the first Negro fraternity in the United States? All right, I'm going to answer the question. Here it is. The oldest Negro fraternity is the Freemasonry of Prince Hall. All right, so Prince Hall, right, that is the oldest Negro fraternity in the United States here. Okay, and there you see an image of him. And here's some information on Prince Hall. Prince Hall is recognized as the father of Black Masonry in the United States. Historically, he made it possible for all Negroes to be recognized and enjoy all privileges of free and accepted Masonry. A few records and papers have been found on him in Barbados, where it was rumored that he was born in 1748, but no record of birth by church or state has been found there, and none in Boston. So on March 6, 1775, Prince Hall and 14 men of color were made Masons in Lodge number 441 of the Irish Registry, attached to the 38th British Foot Infantry at Castle William Island in Boston Harbor, Massachusetts. Okay, so understand this, right? Every military base is going to have a fraternity and sorority there. Every military base, you're going to see a chapter, you're going to see a lodge that's either on base or close by. That is a Masonic lodge. All right. When I was a Freemason, I went through when I was over in Korea. Otis Hopkins Military Lodge number 10 was the lodge that I was part of. But Yah pulled me out of that and thank the Most High for, again, salvation. All right. So let me give you some more history on this here. Again, Prince Hall is the very first Negro fraternity in this country. All right. So again, on March 6th, 1775, Prince Hall and 14 men of color were made Masons in Lodge 441 of the Irish Registry, attached to the 38th British Foot Infantry at Castle William Island in Boston Harbor, Massachusetts. It marked the first time that black men were made Masons in America. All right. About a year later, since the conflict between England and America had commenced, the British Foot Infantry left Boston along with its lodge, leaving Prince Hall and his associates without a lodge. Before the lodge left, Worshipful Master Bott gave them a permit to meet as a lodge and bury their dead in manner and form. This permit, however, did not allow them to do any Masonic works or to take in any new members. Under it, African Lodge was organized on July 3rd, 1776, with Prince Hall as the worshipful master. All right. Make a note of that term, worshipful what? Master. So it wasn't long before this lodge received an additional permit from the provincial Grand Master John Rowe to walk in procession on St. John's Day. On March 2nd, 1784, African Lodge number one petitioned the Grand Lodge of England, the premier or mother Grand Lodge of the world, for a warrant, in other words, a charter to organize a regular Masonic lodge with all the rights and privileges thereunto prescribed. Okay, so this, right, technically on paper, many would consider that this is a major accomplishment. However, this is not the heritage that Yah has set aside for his people. Let me say it again. This will be considered a major accomplishment. However, this is not the heritage that Yah set aside for his people. Let me go to the scriptures here. 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 14 and 15 says, "And no marvel, for Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light. Therefore, it is no great thing if his ministers also be transformed as the ministers of righteousness, whose end shall be according to their works." So make a note of this text here. Make a note of these verses that I just shared with you. So if Hasatan and his ministers pretends to be messengers of light, this means that they also have a doctrine. Let me say that again. If Hasatan and his ministers pretend to be messengers of light, this means they also have a doctrine. Let's break this down some more. So the question is, and I'm glad you guys asked, what is the doctrine of Hasatan? Let's see here. Let's start with the doctrines of secret societies. We're getting ready to go into deeper water here, guys. All right. So if you're good with the sound here, just hit type in number one. So that way I know that the audio is good. All right. So nevertheless, the doctrine of secret society. All right. So remember, as we move forward, Satan disguises himself as an angel. Malak, angel means messenger, right? As an angel or messenger of light. Okay. So in Masonry, the light is very important in their doctrine. I'll say it again. In Freemasonry, the light is very important in their doctrine, right? Let's start with the three pillars, the three lesser lights, right? Which is the sun, the moon, and the master of that lodge. And the master of that lodge is called the worshipful master, right? Make a note of that name again. The master of each lodge is called the worshipful master. Okay. So, what did the Hebrew Israelite Messiah say about calling someone master? Okay. What did he say about that? Let's see what he said. Matthew chapter 23, verse 8 through 10 says this, but be not ye called rabbi, for one is your master, even Christ, and all ye are brethren, and call no man your father upon the earth, for one is your father which is in heaven. Neither be called, neither be ye called masters, for one is your master, even Christ. All right. So I want to make this clear. Greatness is measured by service, not by earthly honor. Together, we are brothers and sisters to one another. One is not above or more exalted than another. Each stands as an equal before Yahweh and one another. Okay, just wanted to make that point there. So here is the pillars of Freemasonry. Let's deal with the pillars of Freemasonry. Here is one of the major pillars of Freemasonry, right? And this is coming from a book called Eliphas Levi in the Kabbalah, right? Eliphas Levi is one of the pillars, is major pillars in Freemasonry, all right? Eliphas Levi, all right? Let's see what it says here, all right? Coming out of this book. What is more absurd and more impious than to attribute the name of Lucifer to the devil? This is his quote. I'll read it again. What is more absurd and more impious than to attribute the name of Lucifer to the devil? That is, to personified evil. The intellectual Lucifer is the spirit of intelligence and love. Now, you see how he's paying homage to Lucifer? See how he's worshiping Lucifer? He goes on to say, it is the paraclete, in other words, an advocate. It is the Holy Spirit, where the physical Lucifer is the great angel of universalism, magnetism. You see that word, universalism, right? Comes from the word. Remember, we say universe, the doctrines of what? Uni, okay? But let's go to another reference, Baskin Wade Dictionary of Satanism. Now, before I go further, I want to put this disclaimer out. Family, do not go out and purchase these books if you are not grounded with the scriptures. If you do not have a prayer life, if you do not fast, if you do not read your word, if you do not have the Holy Spirit, do not go out and purchase these books, because many people will go purchase books like this to read and haven't even read the Bible. In our ministry, I challenge all the ministers to make sure before they even touch the Apocrypha, to make sure that they have read through the what many call the Old Testament. And literally, I had to challenge them to make sure that and walk them through um, the Torah, the law, the first 5 books of the Bible. So again, do not go out and purchase these books, because if you're not spiritually sound, it can mess you up. All right. So I wanted to put that disclaimer out there to warn you guys. Do not go out there just purchasing books, because a lot of people are purchasing books that are not sound spiritually. Especially, I see it happening to a lot of young men and women going out here now. Before you know it, they are out in left field, out in right field, and they're just incorporating all kinds of stuff, and they're adding so much to the text that's not even there. All right. So I just want to put that out there. All right. So let's get back to it. So Baskin, or Wade Baskin's Dictionary of Satanism. This is what he says. This is what they say about Eliphas Levi. It says here, French magician and author of works on the occult. Eliphas Levi, whose real name was Alphonse Louis Constant, claimed to have summoned up the ghost of Apollonius of Tyana in London in 1854, born in Paris about 1810. He is said to have been reincarnated. Okay, goes on to say, as Aleister Crowley. You see what it says? It says, right, they in the Luciferian belief system, they believe that Aleister Crowley is the reincarnation of Eliphas Levi. Okay, so A and E Waite, right? The learned English occultist said that that Levi's doctrine and ritual contained the secrets of an occult society into which Levi had been initiated and from which he had been expelled. All right. So Eliphas Levi created an image that is popular for all the wrong reasons. Let's see that image that he created here. Let me take you to this article, BBC News, decoding the symbol on Satan's statue. All right. The names the name dates back to the Inquisition and torture of the Knights Templar about 1100, right? The 11th century, who, according to French chroniclers of the Crusades, confessed to worshiping a heathen idol called Baphomet. Okay, goes on to say some scholars believe Baphomet was simply a corruption of excuse me, I hit the button accidentally. Let me read that again. Some scholars believe Baphomet was simply a corruption of Muhammad, the prophet Muhammad. But over the years, as the mystery and speculations around the Templars had grown, so too the interpretations of the word. It goes on to say the best known modern image of Baphomet was drawn in 1856 by the French occultist Eliphas Levi in his book Transcendental Magic, right? Transcendental Magic, right? And it says here, its doctrine of ritual, he emphasized a winged hermaphrodite with a torch between his horns and a pentagram on his forehead. See, most people truly don't know that the Baphomet is actually a hermaphrodite, right? Hermes and Aphrodite, right? And I'm going to show you here. Levi's Baphomet was a hermaphrodite with breasts, but we took the breasts off, says Greaves. The temple did not want to get embroiled in a debate about gender, which might distract from what it believes are more important. So here is the image. And as you can see here on the original image, you see what? Breasts on the Baphomet. All right. Promoting transgender. Okay. Now, one of the first Americans to come up under the influence of Eliphas Levi was the noted Masonic writer Albert Pike. All right. So Albert Eliphas Levi, right? Then we have his understudy, his pupil here, Albert Pike, the famous Albert Pike. So morals and dogma, right? In this book, right, there's sections of Pike writings that is verbatim to the works of Levi, verbatim, right? So let's go further here. And I want to make this clear. The foundation of Freemasonry is Judaism. So if Judaism is the foundation of Freemasonry, every fraternity is going to direct you to Judaism, and I'm going to prove that. All right. So this is the first block, right? When we conclude this first block, I'm going to show you the influence of Judaism. Here it is. All right. So Albert Pike, morals and dogma. Let's see what he says here. All right. Lucifer, the light bearer, strange and mysterious name to give to the spirit of darkness. Lucifer, the son of the morning. Is it he who bears the light? And with its splendor, intolerable blinds, feeble, sensual, or selfish souls? Doubt it not. This is what he goes on to say. That which we must say to a crowd, we worship a God. Now, make a note of this right here, because we're going to circle back to this. Make a note right here that we must say to a crowd is we worship a God. Pay attention to this right here. We worship a God. And notice the indefinite article there. But it is the God that one adores without superstition. To you, sovereign grand inspectors general, we say this, that you may repeat it too. So what they're saying is, to the public, they have to say they worship a God, just so that way they will not what? See the red flag that they worship Lucifer. That's what he's saying. In public, say we worship a God. Okay. So we must say to a crowd again, we worship a God. This is a statement based on Gnosticism. I'll say it again. This is a statement based on Gnosticism. All right. Let me take a little sip of my water here because I know I've been going a little while here. My throat is getting a little dry. Bear with me 1 second. All right. So, again, this is a statement based on Gnosticism. Let's deal with Gnosticism real quick. And some of you guys probably remember in the videos that I uploaded, right? They made it a point to share how Calvinism, right, has um it's filled with Gnosticism, a Gnostic approach, right? We're not going to deal with all of that today, but we're going to deal with it at another time. All right. So again, this statement is based on Gnosticism. So the question is, what is Gnosticism? What is Gnosticism? All right. Let's go to the Oxford Dictionary. Let's see what it says. A prominent heretical movement of the second century Christian church, partly of pre Christian origin. Here's the key: Gnostic doctrine taught that the world was created and ruled by a lesser divinity, the demiurge, and that Christ was an emissary of the remote supreme divine being, esoteric knowledge, in other words, gnosis, of whom enabled the redemption of the human spirit. In other words, this is saying that the Hebrew Israelite Messiah, as you see here, is a lesser divinity, is a lesser God. See, that was the argument when you understand the Council of Nicaea. You had the which was in 321 AD. You had Athanasius, who was considered to have the orthodox approach to understanding the text, the majority, right? And then you had Arius, who believed in this Gnosticism, right? Gnosticism believing that Christ, right, did not become divine until after he died and was resurrected. Believe that Christ was just another person, another being. You know, he was on another level, but he was he was a lesser God. That's what they teach, Gnosticism. So this is when you start understanding the argument. So that was the primary argument at the Council of Nicaea. They were what put that council together to what knock down Gnosticism. Out of that council, this is where you get what is called the Nicene Creed. That's why you see a lot of urban apologists, not just urban apologists, but apologists in general. They want you to basically recite the Nicene Creed to prove that you what believe in the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Then this is where you start getting into what the Trinity and all this other stuff, the Trinitarian doctrine. The Trinity is not even in the scriptures. The word Trinity is not even in the scriptures. From a biblical perspective, we have what is called the Alahayim, or some would say Elohim. But Alahayim, that's a whole nother story. And we could break that down. That's there from the very beginning. And we're going to do an entire teaching on the first couple of chapters of Genesis. All right. Just so that way you have a better understanding of Genesis. Because if you don't understand Genesis, everything forward, you'll be off. All right. But nevertheless, getting back to the Council of Nicaea, so that was the primary argument, is the view of the Hebrew Israelite Messiah. So they had to come together to knock down Gnosticism. And we see that Gnosticism has raised its head again. All right. And we'll deal with that another time. All right. So again, that's what Gnosticism is. Okay. So let's go back to Albert Pike. Let's see what else he says. He says 31st and 30th degrees, the Masonic religion should be, by all of us initiates of the higher degrees, maintained in the purity of the Luciferian doctrine. He goes on to say, the sun represents the actual light. He pours out the moon, his fundating rays, both shed their light upon their offsprings. The blazing star, or Horus, notice what he's saying, and the three form the great equilateral, triangle, in the center of which is the omnific letter of the Kabbalah. Notice what he's saying, Kabbalah, by which creation is said to have been effected. It goes on to say, in the first three Persian Amshapans, Lord of light, fire, and splendor, we recognize Aor, Zohar, and Zayo. And you know, Zohar, that's part of the mystical doctrines of Judaism, right? When you start getting into the Kabbalah, okay, which Jewish mysticism is pretty much is what is called the Maccabee mystics doctrines, all right. But nevertheless, you see here Zayo, light, splendor, and brightness of what? The Kabbalah. They still referring to what? The Kabbalah. He goes on to say, Masonry is a search after light. That search leads us directly back, as you see, to the Kabbalah and the ancient and little understood medley of absurdity in philosophy. The initiate will find the source of many. All right. So remember, Masonry is a search after light. That's what he says. That search leads us directly back, as you see, to the Kabbalah. All right. He goes on to say, Philo calls it the universal light, which loses a portion of its purity and splendor in descending from the intellectual to the sensible word, manifesting itself outwardly from the deity. And the Kabbalah represents that only so much of the infinite light flowed into the circular void prepared for creation. All truly dogmatic religions have issued from the Kabbalah and returned to it. Everything scientific and grand in the religious dreams of the Illuminati, Jacob Boehm, Swedenborg, St. Martin, and others is borrowed from the Kabbalah. All the Masonic associations owe to it their secrets and their symbols. Notice he keeps saying what? The Kabbalah. So if you are in Freemasonry, you are practicing the Kabbalah. If you in any one of these glows, fraternities, guess what? You are practicing the Kabbalah. You are practicing Judaism. So again, issue from the Kabbalah and return to it everything scientific and grand religious dream of the Illuminati. So let's deal with the definition of Illuminati. Let's see what it means. Let's go to the etymology dictionary online. All right. I know I'm giving you a lot of information. Are you guys good at how do my sound? Is my sound okay? If so, just hit the number one, type the number one just to make sure that we good. Want to make sure that we're not I'm not getting a lot of feedback, that you guys can hear me clearly. Are you guys good? All right. All right. Just looking here to see if I get any ones up here. We're good. Just typing one. There we go. Okay, good. All right. This is the etymology dictionary definition of Illuminati. It means enlighten, light up, make light, illuminate. All right. Then it goes on to say, name of a secret society. Okay. It goes on to say, founded 1776 in Ingolstadt, Bavaria, and holding deistic and republican principles. I'll read that portion again. Holding deistic and republican principles. So let's deal with the Illuminati of Bavaria real quick. Let me give you some information on them. This is coming from the Encyclopedia of Freemasonry, right? These are the books right here. And I still have my books, just to use as a reference. All right. But let's see what they say about the Illuminati. It says, a secret society founded on May 1st, 1776 by Adam Weishaupt, who was professor of canon law at the University of Ingolstadt. Its founders at first called it the Order of the Perfectibilists, but he subsequently gave it the name by which it is now universally known. Its professed object was by the mutual assistance of its members to attain the highest possible degree of morality and virtue, and to lay the foundation for the reformation of the world by association of good men to oppose the progress of moral evil, to give to the order a higher influence. Weishaupt connected it with the Masonic institution, right? So, truly understanding what the Illuminati is, not a single Negro can be part of the Illuminati, regardless of how much money you have. JC could not be part of the Illuminati. Michael Jordan could not be part of the Illuminati. That's not how the Illuminati roll. That's not how it was designed. All right. So let's see what else it says here. In its internal organization, the order of Illuminati was divided into three greater classes. Notice you see the three greater classes, namely the nursery, number two, symbolic Freemasonry, number three, the mysteries, each of which was subdivided, excuse me, into several degrees, making 10 in all, as in the following table. We're going to highlight the table. See, guys, you got to pay attention to these numbers here, right? Um, when you see the three great classes, right? When we understand, for example, in Hebrew, the number three represents maturity, the gamal, it represents maturity, weaned, okay, sustained. But then it says here, subdivided into several degrees, making 10 in all. The number 10, the yad, right? In ancient Hebrew, right? It means redemption, right? Salvation, outstretched arms. So these things have meaning, and they're not putting these numbers there for just happenstance. They're calculated here. Okay, so this is what teaching what redemption through this secret society. All right, this secret society is teaching you how to what mature as what being you know indoctrinated to this system. Okay, so we have the class called the nursery, and it says here, after a ceremony of preparation, it began. You see, number one, novice, number two, Minerval. Now, you notice I have Minerval highlighted because we're going to highlight her a little later. And number three, Illuminatus minor. So let's deal with the definition of Minerval real quick. All right. We're going to see this name again. It says relating association with or reminiscent of Minerva, right? It goes on to say early 17th century, earliest use found in John Mason's from classical Latin, Minervalis. All right, you get the gist of it. All right, so this just give me a little more information on it. So reminiscent of Minerva. So again, make a note of this goddess, and we're going to revisit her shortly. Let's go back to Albert Pike. If Lucifer was not God, would Adonai, whose deeds prove his cruelty and hatred of man, barbarism, and repulsive for science, would Adonai and his priests culminate him? Yes, Lucifer is God, and unfortunately, Adonai is also God. This is what he says. This is his literature. This is coming out of his own book, and many of what he's quoting here comes from what verbatim from Eliphas Levi. Okay, for the eternal law is that there is no light without shade, no beauty without ugliness, no white without black. For the absolute can only exist as two gods, darkness being necessary to the statue and the break to the locomotive. All right, it's going on to say, thus the doctrine of Satanism is a heresy, and the true and pure philosophical religion is the belief in Lucifer, the equal of Adonai. But Lucifer, it goes on to say, God of light and God of good, is struggling for humanity against Adonai, the God of darkness and evil. Notice what he's saying. He's paying homage to Lucifer. He refers to Lucifer as the God of light, the God of good. All right. So, what do the Masons say about Albert Pike? Let's see what the Masons said, just so that way we bring this all together here. What do they say about Albert Pike? It says, his library in extent and selection was a marvel, especially in all that pertains to the wonders in ancient literature. Brother Pike was the sovereign grand commander of the Southern Supreme Council, right? And it goes on to say what? Of the what? Scottish Rites, right? I'm not going to get into the different houses, I'm not going to do that right now. But nevertheless, having been elected in 1859, he was the provincial grand master of the Lodge of the Royal Order of Scotland in the U.S. and an honorary member of almost every Supreme Council in the world. Let me say that again. An honorary member of almost every Supreme Council in the world. His stance as a Masonic author and historian, and withal as a poet, was most distinguished, and his untiring zeal was without a parallel. So let's see the influence of Freemasonry on religions. All right, let's see the influence of Freemasonry on religions. Let's deal with the Jehovah Witnesses, the influence of Freemasonry on the Jehovah Witnesses. Let's go to John chapter 1, and we're going to highlight verse 1 through 3. All right, let's see what it says. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with, and now your translation is going to say God, but I put Elohim here. But in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with Elohim, in other words, God, transliterates to God. And the Word was Elohim, in other words, transliterates to, and the Word was God. That's key right there. The same was in the beginning with Elohim. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. But let's see what this says, right? Let's see how this transliterates from the New World Translation Bible. It says here, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was, there it is, the Word was what? A God. That's important. One thing you have to understand, right? In ancient Hebrew, there's no indefinite articles. In Greek, there's no indefinite articles. English, there's both indefinite articles and indefinite articles, which when you start dealing with indefinite articles, it can make a text sound vague like this right here. The Word was a God. That's like me saying that I have a daughter that lives in my house, or I say my daughter, let's just say Alani is a daughter, right? As to saying that she is the daughter, she is my daughter. See, that's what happens when you start dealing with the Jehovah Witness doctrine, right? When you start understanding the manuscripts, right, far as the differences between the Alexandrian manuscripts versus the Antioch manuscripts or the Byzantine manuscripts, right? When you're dealing with the Alexandrian manuscripts, right? You have what is called the Codex Sinaiticus, this Codex Vaticanus, and so this book is based off of the New World Translation is based off of the Alexandrian manuscripts. That's why you'll see this book read almost the same as the NIV version of the Bible and some of the other modern Bibles that come out of this. The Message Bible, which is a terrible Bible, but nevertheless, this Bible, you'll see the same scriptures that you will see that's not there in this Bible that you will see in the NIV Bible. And that's why many Jehovah Witnesses are comfortable with pulling out the NIV Bible as part of how they try to win people over. But you see here, it says the Word was a God. So this is, when you start dealing with the Jehovah Witnesses, the doctrine, this New World Translation Bible is what they wrote, which is an extreme corruption of the Greek text. All right. So you see, was a God. Not trying to go geek mode to you guys here. So the influence of Freemasonry on the founder of the Jehovah's Witnesses. Let's see the influence on the founder. All right. So again, remember, Albert Pike said that we must say to a crowd that we worship what? A God. Right in sync, right in alignment with the Jehovah Witnesses version of John 1 and 1. All right. So again, and that is the key to understanding Gnosticism. A God, that is a Gnostic perspective. Okay. So the Temple of God, Charles Taze Russell, Convention Reports, 1906 through 1916. Now, this is some bullets from his some of his messages that he had given at this convention. So I'm just going to read. I'm just going to highlight a couple of bullets here for your reference here. He says here, I am very glad to have this particular opportunity of saying a word about some of the things in which we agree with our Masonic friends. Because we are speaking in a building dedicated to Masonry, and we also are Masons, I am a Freemason. I am a free and accepted Mason. If I may carry the matter to its full length, it goes on to say, because that is what our Masonic brethren like to tell us, that they are free and accepted Masons, that that is their style of putting it. Now, I am a free and accepted Mason. I trust we all are. I said that I had been in conference with the great master workman, the Lord himself. And I have secret information through the Holy Spirit and guidance in respect to what the Bible says, and that contains all the truth, I believe, on every subject. But now I am talking about this great order of Masonry, of which Jesus is the Grand Master. This order is to be entered in a peculiar way. There are certain conditions: the low gate, the narrow gate, the difficult path, right? And notice how he highlights three levels here: the low gate, the narrow way, the difficult path. All right. Those are three levels right there. That is what the first 3 degrees, right? The inner apprentice, the fellow craft, and the master mason is what he's highlighting. It is in riding the goat, etc. And the Bible calls for the goat. The Bible tells you that your goat, which you have to ride more or less every day, is your own flesh. Our Masonic friends have it down very fine, right? And this is images from his burial. You see the pyramid, you see the symbol of the Knights Templar on the right. This is his burial place. You see the Masonic images on where he's buried at? All right. So, what does it mean to ride the goat? And so, we already saw the influence there. I can break down some other influences, but for the sake of time, I wanted to keep it pretty simple. So, I wanted to use the Jehovah Witnesses as an example. You could break down the Mormonism, you could break down the Catholic Church, you could break down the Protestants. We could go further than that, but we're going to keep it simple. So, what does it mean to ride the goat? Right? Let's go back here. The Encyclopedia of Freemasonry. Goat, riding the goat. The vulgar idea of riding the goat constitutes a part of the ceremonies of initiation in a Masonic lodge, has its real origin in the superstition of antiquity. The old Greeks and Romans portrayed their mystical god Pan and horns and hoofs and shaggy hide and called him goat footed. In other words, this is dealing with Peter Pan. So Pan and horns. So when the demonology of the classics was adopted and modified by the early Christians, Pan gave way to Satan, who naturally inherited his attributes. So that to the common mind, the devil was represented by a he goat. And its best known marks were the horns, the beard, and the cloven hoofs. Then came the witch. It goes on to say, stories of the Middle Ages in the belief of in the witch orgies, where it was said the devil appeared riding on a goat. These orgies of the witches were, admit, fearfully blasphemous ceremonies. They practiced initiation into their satanic rites, became to the vulgar and the illiterate the type of Masonic mysteries. For, as Dr. Oliver says, it was in England a common belief that the Freemasons were accustomed in their lodges to raise the devil. So the riding of the goat, which was believed to be the practice by the witches, was transferred to the Freemasons. And the same remains to this day, although the belief has very long since died out. All right. So, who is the goat in the scriptures? Who is the goat in the scriptures? All right. Let's go to Leviticus chapter 17, verse 7. It says this: and they shall no more offer their sacrifices unto devils, after whom they have gone a whoring. They shall be a statue forever for excuse me. This shall be a statue forever unto them throughout their generations. So let's deal with the Hebrew definition of devils. Let's see what it says. It says shaggy, a he goat, devil, goat, hairy kid. All right. So we see it right here, even though the KJV says devil, but actually it should say what? He goat or goat demon. But let's see what the other translations say. Now, I want to make this clear. I'm not endorsing the NIV. I'm not endorsing the Message Bible, but I just want to give you an idea of what they say in regards to this verse. The Message Bible says they must no longer offer their sacrifices to, and as you see, goat demons, a kind of religious orgy. All right. Then we see the NIV. They must no longer offer any of their sacrifices to the goat idols to whom they prostitute themselves. This is to be a lasting ordinance for them and for generations to come. All right. So, who is the biblical goat demon? That's right. I see Zebulon made a great comment. Notice how athletes call themselves goats, right? And they have the acronyms there. Okay. So, who is the biblical goat demon? Who is the biblical goat demon? Let's go to Leviticus chapter 17, verse 7. All right. Actually, 18, verse 21. That's an error on my slide. All right. And thou shalt not let any of thy seed pass through the fire to Molech, neither shalt thou profane the name of thy Elohim. I am Yahweh. So this is telling us, this is the law saying that we're not to let our seeds, right, participate, be sacrificed to Molech. All right. This is law right here. So the goat demon is Molech. All right. Now, I want to give a little clarity to when we're dealing with the term Malak, right? The ancient pronunciation of it. Now, in Hebrew, right, Malak, right, is king. But when you get into like the Amorites usage of the word, it's referring to what? Their deities, their gods. So it's like words that are loaned from one culture to another. The words may be the same word, but may have different meanings in different cultures. All right. So, but this is the goat demon right here, right? Of Molech. You see the Baphomets, and to the right, you see Molech, right? But then also, you will hear about the goat of Mendez. That's still part of this right here. And when Israel came out of Egypt, and they began to build a golden calf, they actually what created a goat demon and put it on what? A float, right? You see them what? Creating a parade. That's all a parade is. It is a movable altar, right? That they call it floats, but it's a movable altar. All right. So the Hebrew definition of Molech, and I kind of broke this down already, but you see the chief deity of the Ammonites. All right. But again, from a Hebraic perspective, you'll see it's interchangeable with king, queen, messenger. All right. So the Oxford Dictionary of the Jewish religion definition of Molech. Now, peep this out. All right. We're going to go a little bit longer. Then we're going to wrap this up because I know I've been going for some time and I want to take it down. I know I'm giving you a lot of information. I got a lot more to go. So we're going to break this up into two parts. So the Oxford Dictionary definition of the Jewish religion definition of Molech. It says this. This is a great book here. I encourage you guys to purchase it, and you'll be surprised what it reveals to you. So Molech, Semitic deity worshipped in biblical times, known from Ugaritic and Mesopotamian sources as Malik. It is likely that Molech figured among the Chthonic gods, that is, those associated with death and the underworld. According to biblical tradition, Molech was worshipped by means of child sacrifice and practice. It goes on to say, Israelites, Israelite belief and law, and it lists the scriptures here. Child sacrifice is condemned in the Bible without mention of the god Molech. Now, notice how their doctrine, right, try to kind of water down what it says. It says child sacrifice is condemned in the Bible without mentioning of the god Molech as a characteristically repulsive form of Canaanite religion to be shunned by the Israelites. Explicit prohibition, excuse me, yeah, prohibition, excuse me, prohibit. I am not even gonna mess up this word. My tongue is dry. Prohibitions, excuse me. Let me say it again. Prohibitions, excuse me for messing up. My tongue is a little dry here. All right. So against the worship of Molech are found in Leviticus. All right. So again, let's see what it says here. I'm going to take you to their doctrine so you can see what they really say about Molech. All right. So again, child sacrifice is condemned in the Bible without mentioning the God's name. Now, why would they water down the lesson that way? Why would they water down the scriptures that way? The scripture says, no more offer sacrifices zabak unto devils. All right. So, what does the other Jewish rabbinical literature called the Talmud teach about Molech? Let's see what it says here. Let's see what, let's go to Sanhedrin 64a. Let's see what they say about the worship of Molech. And some of you guys are going to be surprised. Mishnah, that's one of their um, pillars of their doctrine. He who gives his seed to Molech incurs no punishment unless he delivers it to Molech and causes it to pass through the fire. What did it just say? He who gives his seed to Molech incurs no punishment unless he delivers it to Molech and causes it to pass through the fire. It goes on to say, if he gave it to Molech, but did not cause it to pass through the fire or the reverse, he incurs no penalties unless he does both. So he's saying you can dedicate your child to Molech as long as you don't what? Sacrifice it or pass it through the fire. You see what's happening here? They are promoting the worship, right? The worship of Molech. They're promoting this thing right here. But let me go further. Let's see what else they say. It says, the Mishnah teaches idolatry and giving to Molech, right? It goes on to say, our Mishnah is in accordance with the view that Molech worship is not idolatry. Let me say that again. Our Mishnah is in accordance with the view that Molech worship is not idolatry. For it has been taught if one causes his seed to pass through the fire, whether to Molech or to any other idols, he is liable to death. But it goes on to say, Simeon said, if to Molech, he is liable. If to another idol, he is not liable. You see the arguments here? You see what's happening here? They're basically saying that you can worship Molech. They said that you can sacrifice your child. You know, they said if you give your child to dedicate your child to Molech, but you don't pass him through the fire, he or she through the fire, you're good. Or if you pass your child through the fire, but not dedicate your child to Molech, then you're good. Or to any other idol, right? Says being that it didn't mention any other idols, you're good. You see the confusion here. You see the witchcraft that's here. You see the deception here. All right. So the Talmud endorses the worship of the goat demon. I'll say it again. The Talmud endorses the worship of the goat demon. Now let's get to this point right here, because this is going to be the final thought here. This is going to be the final thought. I know this right here is going to really catch some of you guys off guard, if not all of you guys off guard, right? And I can tell you, those that are like, the first 3 degrees of Masonry will not know this right here. All right. But again, the Freemasons, God, God. Let's see what it says. Let's see what it means here. Let's go back to these references here. God, the initials of Gomer, Oz, Dabar. It is a singular, it says it is a singular coincidence and worthy of thought that the letters composing the English name of deity should be the initials of the Hebrew word wisdom, strength, and beauty. The 3 great pillars or metaphorical supports of Masonry. They seem to present almost the only reason that can reconcile a Mason to the use of the initial G and its conspicuous suspension in the east of the lodge and place of the delta. In other words, that triangle, right? The incident seems to be more than a coincidence. And you see how it lists there. Excuse me for some reason when I copied this over into my presentation and put the Hebrew words backwards. So you see it's reading from left to right versus right to left. But dabar means we already know that means word. Then you see Oz, right? Strength. Then you see Gomer or Gamar, right? You see beauty. All right. So you see what it's saying right here, right? So Freemasonry is teaching. Well, let me not get ahead. Let me just paint this picture. You're gonna get this right. So the only reason, again, the only reason that can reconcile a Mason to the use of the initial G. Let's see what it says. Right. This is to promote the worship of Gomer. Let me say that again. That letter G that you see is not representing God. It's not representing geometry. It is promoting the worship of Gomer. I'll say it again. Freemasonry and all these secret societies is promoting the worship of Gomer. That letter G represents Gomer. Freemasonry again promotes the worship of Gomer. Why is this important to know? I'm going to show you why. Going back to Genesis chapter 10, verse 2, remember, that's why I said this is an important chapter for you to master, get down, so you'll be able to what, snuff out a lot of these um, 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 false teachings out here, the deceptions that are out here. The sons of Japheth, there you have it, Gomer and Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshach, Tiras. But then verse 3, the sons of Gomer, we see Ashkenaz. Uh-oh. You see where I'm going at with this, guys? So the Hebrew definition of Gomer, this is what it means. Gomer, the name of the son of Japheth, his descendants, and goes on to say in the next one here, the eldest son of Japheth, grandson of Noah, the progenitor of the earliest Sumerians. We'll deal with that another time, and other branches of the Celtic family. All right. So why is this important to know? Again, I'm gonna ask that question, right? All right, already. This is duplicate right here. Let me actually. Yeah, that's a duplicate slide. Sorry about that, guys. I didn't double check my slides here. See, Gomer, this is why it's important. Gomer is the father of Ashkenaz, meaning what we are seeing today, what Freemasonry is telling us, is to worship the Ashkenazis we see today. Is it a coincidence that Santa Claus, right? Look at the image of Santa Claus. Take the cap off of Santa Claus and put the Jewish hat on it and watch how Santa Claus will look. Santa Claus has the same locks, got the beard, but change the hats. Put a black hat on him and tell me how he would look. Is there a coincidence that our people are struggling with worshiping this image of Santa Claus or Saint Nicholas, which is also the name of the king that signed the edict to enslave our people? His name was Nicholas. But now they have us worshiping what? Our people worshiping Nicholas, worshiping these images of what? Of who? Gomer's descendants. So when you look at the Jewish community today, guess what? They are descendants of Ashkenaz. And guess what? Their cousins, right? Known as who? The Mennonites that many we refer to as Mormons. Those are their cousins. When you go to the Amish, these are their cousins right here. Rather, I said Mormons, but the Amish community, they are the cousins of the Ashkenazis. They are what? They call themselves Mennonites. They are the same people. But all is what? The worship of Ashkenaz, the worship of Gomer ultimately. That's right, the Nicolaitans, which means what? The doctrine of destruction, destroying Yah's people. That's what the Nicolaites, the word Nicolaites means, destruction of people. And the people that is selected is Yah's people who they're destroying with this corrupt doctrine. So Gomer is the father of Ashkenaz. So 90% of the Jewish community is descendants of Ashkenaz. Here's a key prophecy. Genesis chapter 9:27. It says this. It says this. Alahayim shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. Uh-oh. So every fraternity and every sorority promote the worship of Gomer. Right now, let me break it down a little bit more, because the worship of Gomer, when you start understanding, even during the times of slavery, even to this day, right? The worship of Gomer is referring to the Caucasian man. If you understand slavery, and I'm going to teach this in another presentation, the Caucasian women were required to worship their husbands as if they are God. And if you go to um, um, do a Google search on the Baphomet that they erected uh, in Oklahoma, and put one up in Georgia, you will see at the bottom of that statue, you'll see two kids, statues of kids, a black boy and a white girl, a Negro boy and a Caucasian girl at the base of that statue. All right. So again, bringing this out here, guys, bringing this out here. I hope you guys understand this. So every fraternity, every sorority promotes the worship of Gomer, identity thief, right? And these are some of the images to the right of your screen. You guys recognize Caesar Borgia, but we know that they already had, even before this image here, they already had other Caucasians with this image, looking like this image. And to the left there, you see Julia. I can't see the other portion of it. Let me move that out. Let me try this again. Oh, yeah, Farnese. That is Julia Farnese. That is the image that we see today of supposed to be Mary, the Virgin Mary. But that's what it really is. And of course, we see Santa Claus at the front. All right. So again, keep it biblical prophecy as we wrap it up. Second Thessalonians chapter 3 and 4. I mean, chapter 2, verse 3 and 4. It says, "Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin is revealed, the son of perdition." And it goes on to say, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called Allahayim. And your translation is going to say God, or that is worship, so that he is Yahweh, sitteth in the temple of Yahweh, showing himself that he is Yahweh. So this is what we see right now. We see that our people are worshiping Gomer. We're worshiping his images. So I know I gave a lot of information, and we got more to go. We didn't even hit the glows yet. But I had to lay out this foundation so you have a full picture of what's going on here. And I don't want to go too much longer because my voice, I'm losing my voice here. But we will pick up with part two next weekend. Give you enough time to digest what we just went over, and give you enough time to revisit some of the videos that I uploaded over the weekend. So I know you have a lot to review. So I hope and pray that this information really helped you. I hope this information gave you a whole nother understanding of the depth of delusion and deception that our people are subjected to. And this is why we see a lot of our brothers and sisters fighting tooth and nail against us, because of the system, the belief system, the structure of it. It promotes it. It promotes it. It promotes protecting Gomer. It promotes protecting his seeds, right? And so that's why we see a lot of these communities, such as the urban apologists in these communities, that are coming at us hard, regardless of how much truth we show them. Whether they see the DNA and it says that we are Israel, they still reject it. They take everything that is truthful and twist it around to what? Justify defending, right? This group of people that literally stole our heritage, stole our identity. So, with that being said, I hope and pray that this was the presentation really helps you. I appreciate my sister, Dr. Janet Newell, pastor. Thank her for being on online. I think I see Rochelle. Um, I thank you for being online as well. I thank Zubaline. I really appreciate you for hanging out here. And guys, go back over and share this video. This is information that I think we all need to share. All right. So again, we'll deal with this some more, but we'll deal with it next week because I got a lot more information to share with you. And then once we get through this, then we're going to navigate through a couple of the books of Revelation so I can give you proper clarity. And then we'll go all the way to the beginning and go to some key scriptures that many people are having problems with. I see a question here. So, how did you get out of the Masons? Quite honestly, I just walked away. I no longer, I didn't update my dues. I didn't participate in anything. I just walked away. I just stopped being active in that system. The Most High pulled me out of it, and I thank the Most High for doing that. So that's a great question. So I just pulled away from it because I saw where it was going to lead me, where it was going to pull me to, and I didn't want to be part of that. All right, let's see here. So again, love you guys. Let's see here. Reese, the image of Santa mocks Revelations. Exactly. We'll deal with Revelation. I got a presentation that I did called Anything But the Negroes. And I will walk you guys through that presentation to show you how to properly break down Revelation chapter 1, verse 14 and 15, and show you how to use other scriptures to really break down that text. So I appreciate you guys. So with that being said, I'm getting ready to take it down because I got to get up early tomorrow. Got a lot going on tomorrow. So pray for me. Appreciate you and thank you. And if you haven't clicked that like button, click the like button or the thumbs up, share the video, and let's get the word out. All right. So you guys have a blessed night. And with that being said, love you, family. Shalom. Mash Paka. Be well, family. Peace.